I came from New York City to live the Maine life. I was hired to design outdoor footwear.
I live the Maine life. We're looking for college grads, so come get your check.
I came from Venezuela to live the Maine life. I opened my own restaurant.
Learn more about hundreds of Maine jobs and our tax program for college grads at liveandworkinmaine.com.
Greetings from the Old Port.
Here's a look at what's coming up on this week's episode.
I feel like it's truly a family here. It's really nice.
Great, thank you.
Fireflies are burning bright. Follow the sweet sounds into the twilight. Rocking chairs on a summer's night. We may never wake up.
Hi everyone, I'm Erin Ovalle.
And I'm Kevin Oates, and this is Maine Life.
An echo of an echo is the semblance of a sound. And I pressed and I've waited with my ear upon the ground. Oh, lover, I'll see you there, waiting in the willows with your autumn hair. Oh, lover, I'll see you there after many miles.
Hi everybody, happy Sunday. We're coming to you from the Old Port in Portland, Maine. This week in Maine Music, we are featuring born and raised Mainer Sea Level with his electric twist on music.
But first, in this week's Maine Business, we are featuring a large Maine employer, Wex. And unfortunately here in the United States, the percentage of female CEOs hovers around 5 to 7%. But fortunately for us here in the state, we have a lot of female leaders, including the CEO of Wex, Melissa Smith. Get to meet her and the culture of the company.
MEMIC supports Maine businesses because we are one. When they thrive, we thrive. We insure 18,000 employers in Maine who really work in so many ways all over our state to make things better in their communities and better for their businesses and better for their employees.
If somebody who is watching this and they have never heard of Wex or they don't exactly know what Wex does, what would you say to them?
I'd say we're a corporate payments company, which means nothing to most people. But if you were to go online and book a hotel room and you would then make a payment, you'd make that payment with your personal card, we would pay all the hotels in the world on behalf of Expedia. So everything we do is highly integrated behind the scenes, all the businesses, over 500,000 businesses across the world.
I love the evolution of what we're doing. What we're doing right now for Wex has never been done. So we're pushing to Amazon Web Services, we're pushing to lots of cloud-based applications where typically things have been done in-house. So that's pretty exciting. My team's been growing. We've doubled in size in the last year, and it's always fun to be part of something that's growing and evolving as you move on.
So I was very pleasantly surprised to get to Wex and be involved right away with a $1.5 billion deal that really had a lot of implications way outside of the state. It's very important to Wex that we are a Maine-based company and that we put as much as we can back into the community.
One of the places we give back are the arts, and we think of the arts as really important to create a vibrant community.
Has your gender played a part in any specific challenges over the years?
Yeah, you stand out, and I think that you can frame it however you want. And I think for me, the way that I've chosen to frame it over time is to think of it as somebody who will be noticed. When I walk into a room, and I remember that when we first went public, 12 years ago, I was the CFO, and I'd walk in a room and you could see a reaction of somebody when you'd walk in, which would be surprise, shock, and over time what I learned is that that also meant that it was a chance to leave an impression. And so it is different, people notice that you're different, and that's not all bad.
That's good. After college, which was Colby, I decided to go west. Ended up right on the border of Mexico, landed in San Diego, had a great career there, and moved with that company to Las Vegas. And As you can imagine, Las Vegas is not where you want to raise a family. So when we had our first child, I looked at my wife and I said, hey, look, you're from New Jersey. Let's go back to Maine. You know, I had fond memories of being a kid, playing in tidal pools, riding BMX bikes in the woods, and just that general safety around Maine that I was striving for my own family. And so it didn't take much to convince her with one trip. She was like, I'm in, and we made our way back. That's why I love WEX. I mean, honestly, I think they recognize that, you know, I'm a husband and a father in addition to a WEXer, and that's a really valuable, you know, trait to have, because you want to feel like you can go home and unplug when you need to. You know, they expect you to perform at your highest level, but at the same time, you know, you respect the needs of responsibility of family. So,
WEX offers a philosophy of working hard and playing hard. In the fall, I'm always on the soccer field with my boys, and in the winter, I ski. We're a skiing family, and we go to Sugarloaf. In the summer, we like to spend time at the beach. It's just a great place to spend time with your family.
Last Sunday, I mean, I started the day fishing in Casco Bay, right off Cousins Island, and we went to Pumpkin Valley Farm and did a hayride. And then, you know, in the afternoon, my 5-year-old learned how to ride a bike without training wheels, zooming up and down our cul-de-sac. So, I mean, you know, every weekend's different, but that's it. I just think about one day, that's the perfect encapsulation of what life is like. I've heard some people refer to WEX as a 30-year-old startup, and I think that's endearing. I mean, it's, when you're a high-growth company, you're constantly evolving. And so, one, it's growth, it's excitement, it's energy. It's also very relationship-based, though. I mean, I was hired in IT, I moved into the business, but the relationships that I've built along the way have really, you know, created this network of get it done type of people that I can leverage everywhere I go. And I feel like it's truly a family here. It's really nice.
Thinking about how you've progressed, you've been part of the Maine music scene for, gosh, forever, in a good way. But, you know, how much has your sound evolved, even like in the past 5 years? Because what you're doing is like no one else in Maine, let alone pretty much New England's really doing the type of stuff that you're approaching as far as the genre. And you know, it's a very cinematic, very almost like a journey the way you write. And so like, how much has your sound evolved since, you know, even the past, let's go not even 5, like 2 to 3 years?
You know, I like to think that the sound of what I do is irrelevant. I feel it's a byproduct of whatever it is I happen to be exploring. These are all samples. Between all of this gear, I have the ability to loop things 7 loops if you include the feedback loops, which I'll get into later or earlier, depending on how this is cut. And, but yeah, it's really, I don't buy gear and figure out how to use it. I figure out what I want to hear and I find the appropriate gear. So every time I perform, I wire things differently. I never play a song the same way twice, and it's not because I'm trying to necessarily be original as a concept, but it's more a matter of every time I set this up, I feel differently. The songs mean different things to me. And sometimes I get a cool new pedal and it's like, woo! And then they sound different.
Hi, I'm Jim. I guess I'm just looking for the ideal partner. I love being out in the wild, taking the road less traveled. I want someone who gets along with my friends, someone I can really share my life with. I guess I'm just looking for someone I can really connect with. Hi, I'm Jim. Nice to meet you.
It's your car. Find it at Quirk.
Speaking of strong female leaders in the state of Maine, most recently the Maine Women's Policy Center and Maine Women's Lobby held the Summit on Economic Security in Augusta, advocating for women's rights all across our state. Next year, they celebrate their 40th anniversary. Learn more about the important work they're doing.
The Maine Women's Summit on Economic Security was held on October 11th. It was a really phenomenal event. We had more than 270 people there over the course of the day. The real charge of the day was to think about all the different issues that impact women's economic security in Maine, but to think about them in a really inclusive way so that they're not just talking about childcare, you're not just talking about paid leave, you're not just talking about all the other issues that we think of in women's lives, but you're talking about how they connect to one another and how they're different for different women.
It reaffirmed a lot of what we do at the Maine Women's Lobby and at the Maine Women's Policy Center, which is partnering with others and realizing that we will get further when we work together. That we're stronger when we recognize the different ways different people are affected by issues and we find those partners to work with.
There were ideas that I was not familiar with. To have such an array of new information was really exciting. When I volunteer for the Maine Women's Lobby and the Maine Women's Policy Center, I feel like I am making a difference in women's lives. It's a small grassroots organization with a lot of passion.
It's frustrating that we are still dealing with attitudes that we would perhaps have thought had gone away. But it reminds me that that's why it's important that we have organizations working to further women's strength, their political rights, their economic well-being, and their leadership, so that more women are in positions of power and it becomes less possible for people to perpetuate that behavior.
And as we move into our 40th anniversary of the Maine Women's Lobby, we are working hard, or we will be working hard, to bring in young women. And it's time for women in their 20s and 30s and 40s to pick this up and move forward with it. And that's what we hope to achieve, partly through our next anniversary year.
Part of the reason why we do events like the Maine Women's Summit on Economic Security and get women involved in the election and give them other opportunities to engage, because it helps rejuvenate you and give you energy and passion so that you can keep fighting. And we have made progress over the years, even over the last several years with so many political challenges. We've still managed to make incremental progress on some things, and then also had really big wins, like getting a higher minimum wage for both Portland and the state. Figuring out how to use those wins to build our passion so that we can keep going is really important.
Change is possible. We do make progress, even in very difficult political times.
The more we educate our voters and the families and the women and men of Maine, I think the more that hope can blossom.
And this week, our travels brought us back to Brunswick to revisit our friends at Flight Deck Brewing for Oyster Flight Night.
That sounds incredible.
You've not been
yet?
I've
not been at all. I've been dying to go, and those two things together sound perfect.
You like oysters?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you got to meet a lot of the oyster farmers and growers here in the state of Maine while sipping their craft beer. Cheers.
Welcome back to Flight Deck Brewing in Brunswick, Maine. Tonight we're here for Oyster Flight Night, which is a great partnership with the Maine Oyster Company. And we're featuring 3 local growers. And of course, oysters taste a little bit different depending on where they're grown and how they're grown. And so tonight's an opportunity to understand what makes different oysters different and unique, and also have an opportunity to pair them with some local made, fresh made beer from Flight Deck. Great opportunity, again, not just to have a great experience tonight, but it's also a great opportunity to expose to some thriving businesses in the local economy that not everybody has direct exposure to. You know, I didn't know, for example, that there are dozens of oyster growers within 10 square miles of where we are today. Tonight we're featuring 3 of them. But you know, that's an indication that there's more of this to come. There's certainly some great opportunities to showcase local made products.
And this guy is ready to go?
That's an Eider Cove right out of New Meadows River, ready to be slurped down.
Yeah? You want to slurp it?
I think, no, you shucked it, so. Nice.
I love it. Everybody, we're here with John Herrigold, the founder of Maine Oyster Company, Farm to Slurp certified. I like that.
Thank you.
Show them your bag.
Boom shakalaka, baby. Yeah.
Where did you get that from?
You know, it's like this whole thing's been this kind of organic growth, and I honestly can't remember if I came up with that theme or my brother-in-law came up with that theme. So it's just kind of my sister designed that little oyster right there. So it's just been this really joint family friends endeavor. And it's just really grown into something, or starting to grow into something.
So when did you start?
So I think the concept was hatched last June, and all that really came from that is kind of a Chinese fire drill to get my oyster farm started by basically September. So I had a farm in the water end of last year. And then not much happened over the winter. The oysters don't grow much in the winter. And then kind of come this year, the oysters rose, and I was like, well, what are we gonna do with all this stuff? So, and I think the concept of the Maine Oyster Company is not even my oysters, it's basically aggregating all these different oysters from basically the Casco Bay and the New Meadows rivers. This area is about to explode. The Amherst has been established, but this New Meadows area is really an exciting time. So it's aggregate the growers, brand the growers, and push the oysters out of Maine, out of New England to kind of other markets. Just kind of have fun with it. It's like I call it vertically integrated oyster solutions. And it's like, we'll see, it's a kind of fancy word, but it's doing stuff like this event. This is our first ever like oyster beer tasting, and we've done some events for weddings and things like that, and then hopefully get a distribution. So
okay, and that's where you're working with the growers who are here tonight?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we have 6 different growers here tonight, and they're all gonna kind of give a quick little spiel on their oyster.
What do we got here?
Well, we have another oyster.
Okay. She looks great. Do you have a favorite?
No, I don't want to.
You don't want to be.
You don't want to like.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
This is great. Thank you.
And it's that time of year again where foodies from all across the country come together for Portland's own Harvest on the Harbor.
And I had the privilege of being one of the judges for the Maine Lobster Chef of the Year.
Oh, wow.
Tough job.
It's a really tough job.
But somebody's got to do it.
Take a watch.
I'm Stephanie Manning. I'm one of the co-producers of Harvest on the Harbor, and today we're here for the 2017 Maine Lobster Chef of the Year competition. We've got 9 chefs competing in today's lunch presentation. Each one of them is going to serve their bite and present it to the judges. The judges will pick a winner who will be named Maine Lobster Chef of the Year, and then there'll also be a People's Choice where our attendees will have the opportunity to pick their favorite.
Lobster is like this ingredient that can take to so many preparations, and these guys, their imagination just runs wild, and it's incredible to see that each one comes up with something so different.
I did a bisque with a sweet lobster corn cake with a little mascarpone crema, tarragon oil, and finished with a little cilantro. So just kind of clean it all up. It's a very anxiety-filled day. Kind of talked to a bunch of chefs back there, and they all feel the same. I mean, we're not public people. We don't get in front of the microphone ever, so this is kind of it's kind of different. I've done this a few times, but you know, it's not an everyday thing. So it's fun to do. It's definitely not in the wheelhouse, in the comfort zone.
Is there a better job than judging a lobster contest? I doubt it, and there's nothing I'd rather be doing on a Friday afternoon in the middle of the day, enjoying a glass of wine and a beer, and I think 8 different lobster preparations, each one completely different, and I love seeing what the chefs can do with each one. They're so creative.
So I work on the fundraising and philanthropy end of Full Plates, Full Potential, which is an organization, 501c3, that is determined to end child hunger in Maine. The money that is raised here, we can turn into, $100,000 if it's a $10,000 donation, because we have access to programs that for every dollar that we raise, we can access a kid to 10 meals. And if you look at the return on that, it's incredible. We fund campaigns in 16 counties, all 16 counties of Maine. and we're proud of the work that's being done. We're a young organization. I invite you to go to fullplates.org and check out our Fun Local program and also our cause marketing that we're working through our restaurant partners and our hotel partners and other people in the hospitality industry. Looking forward to feeding a lot more kids in Maine.
We're all about showcasing the best of Maine and what Maine has to offer in food and drink. And you know, every event is an experiment. We try different formats, we try different varieties of chefs. Today we're focused 100% on lobster, so who doesn't love that? And we've got beer and wine and Bloody Marys and Moscow mules, so everyone's having a really good time.
Hi everyone, in this week's Maine Today Minute, we are talking beer. Portland Beer Week has begun, and one of the first events in the lineup is brought to you by Maine Today. Foundation Brewing has made a special session IPA for Maine Today called The Weekender, after the entertainment magazine and website's weekly newsletter. Its official release will be on Monday at Bayside Bowl at a free event. Come and join us from 5 to 9. The next day is a citywide taco crawl called Taco Tiptoe, with beer and tacos being served up at El Rayo, Craft Beer Cellar, Maps, and Navarre Res, which will be also holding a simultaneous event called Silence of the Lambics, involving a blind beer tasting. For more details about these events and more happening through the week, visit portlandbeerweek.org. And for more information on the best beer events in your community and our local breweries, head to the Beer Muse column on MaineToday.com.
And before we hear one final song from Maine's own Sea Level,
we are leaving you with a bundle of cuteness. Planet Dog has been creating amazing products and caring for our furry friends for 20 years. We are celebrating their 20th anniversary. Thanks so much for joining us.
See you next week.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Fagan. I'm the Director of Marketing for Planet Dog, and today we are at our Planet Dog flagship store, downtown Portland on Marginal Way, celebrating our 20th birthday. The company has now been in business for 20 years, making eco-friendly, made-in-the-USA dog toys, and this is a big celebration for us. 20 years, a part of the Portland community, and just doing what we can to make the best dog toys possible. I personally have been with Planet Dog for just about 18 months. It is a dream come true job. As a Portlander myself, I've always been a massive fan of the brand, particularly the store. I have 2 dogs, so I shopped here all the time. And when the opportunity came up to work with Planet Dog and really, you know, being part of a mission-based company that's dedicated to not only making the best dog toys possible, but giving back and being part of this Maine and Portland-based community was so amazing to me and so wonderful that I jumped at the opportunity to join. I love what we do and couldn't be more proud of this company turning 20, and I look forward to the next 20 years.
So